Chicago's first ever Title IX week and our first ever Chicago Title IX Hero Awards. My name is Amy Eshelman, and I am proud to be the First Lady of Chicago. And I am honored to be here tonight to kick off our ceremony. Lori and I were 9 and 10 years old when Title IX passed in 1972. We both grew up in small towns and had families who supported us to pursue our passions and our dreams. The passage of Title IX gave us the opportunity to be part of a team, to learn perseverance, how to win and how to lose, how best to lead, to gain the confidence then and later in life that would give us both the strength and values to live our authentic lives. But these 37 words we are here to commemorate are just that. They are words. They must have our continued diligence and actions behind them. So that is why Lori and I felt it so important that the city pause and reflect on this milestone and honor these 3 incredible trailblazers who, with their relentless advocacy, champion the civil and human rights of women and girls. When I was young, I saved money in a plastic butter tub to buy a Wilson T2000 tennis racket, just like the one Billie Jean used. And I wish I was good enough to play basketball for Coach Bruno. And I know that our daughter is not dreaming I could be like Mike, but I could be like Candace. So I feel like my life has come full circle in this room tonight. So thank you, Billie Jean, Coach Bruno, and Candace Parker. I also want to thank our amazing group of partners and sponsors, especially our major professional sports teams who have come together to sponsor this week. Now let's get this evening started. It is my pleasure to introduce the starting point guard for the 1980 Massillon, Ohio Tigers girls basketball team and the mayor of our great city, my wife, Lori Lightfoot.
Well, if you go to my high school yearbook, you won't see a lot about me as a sports player. I was enthusiastic. I like to think I played great defense and assist my team to set them up for success. But unlike my wife, who was a high school All-American, I was just a dreamer and loved just being there and out on the court, the field, and every other place that I pursued my athletic passion, all of which were made possible because of Title IX. So we are thrilled to welcome you here tonight and commemorate the passage of Title IX and its lasting impact on women and girls everywhere. First, I'd like to thank our generous sponsors and supporters who have made this week possible. You know, we think of ourselves as a sports town, and I think rightly so. And the evidence of that, I think, is reflected in the fact that every single major professional sports team supported this week. So hats off and thank you to the Chicago Bears, the Blackhawks, the Bulls, the Cubs, the Fire, the Red Stars, the Sky, and last but not least, my beloved Chicago White Sox. And let me also call out and thank Laura Ricketts, Brooke Skinner Ricketts, and the One Chicago Fund, who were absolutely instrumental in making sure that this event that we've been thinking about for quite a long time became a reality. I also want to thank all of you for your support and the ways in which you champion Chicago women in sports. I also have to thank the Chicago Park District and Chicago Public Libraries for their partnership throughout this week. by hosting activities and offering resource guides about Title IX to residents across our city. Can you tell that Amy worked at the Chicago Public Library for a couple decades, making sure that people actually understand the historical context, and that we've got content and bibliographies for people to know about the roots and origin and the effect of Title IX over the last 50 years. So thank you to CPL and the Park District. And of course, I want to thank my wife. She's right. We started talking about this last year and knew that we needed to do something to make sure that we put our mark on the celebrations that are happening all across the country to commemorate one of the most meaningful pieces of legislation to affect the lives of girls and women in our country's history. And it's fitting and appropriate that it's coming now in a time where many women, I think, are feeling a little bit under siege. But today is a time for us to celebrate. Many of you here represent women excelling and leading in sports, and this week has provided an opportunity to pause and reflect on the impact of Title IX and imagine our path forward. Not shying away from the challenges, but certainly taking a moment to reflect and celebrate the gains that have been made and the doors that have been opened just because women and girls didn't have to think, I want to be like my brothers we heard earlier today, but I get to do what the boys do, and I get to do it in my own way, in my own image. Now, Title IX is just 37 words, but 37 words that when approved 50 years ago changed everything. And some of you know, and you'll hear it when you hear the video from Billie Jean King, that word activity got inserted in at the end. It was not the focal point of Title IX. Title IX was about opening up college and university classrooms to women. Many colleges and universities, you may know, had quotas on the number of women who could actually be admitted into college. I mean, imagine that. That's a stunning thing to even think about, given where we are right now. But that was the world in the 1960s and 70s when what became Title IX was being discussed and debated and led by former Indiana Senator Birch Bayh and Billie Jean King and a lot of other folks who were at the table to make sure that this opportunity was realized and fought for the insertion of the word activity. This groundbreaking law also leveled the playing field between men and women, and specifically the soccer fields, the baseball fields, the football fields, and the basketball courts. But in order for these 37 words to uphold their true power and impact, we need heroes to continuing champion women and girls both on and off the fields and the courts. We need advocates who will continue standing up and demanding equal rights and equal treatment. We haven't reached the promised land yet, but we have made progress, and we need to keep fighting to make sure that the barriers get knocked down once and for all. We also need leaders who will continue paving the way for generations of young women to come. The heroes that we honor tonight are just a few but notable advocates and leaders in this journey. In order to truly commemorate Title IX, as it was important to the First Lady and I that we uplift folks in Chicago with Chicago roots who shatter glass ceilings and sports records alike. So tonight, we are pleased to honor tennis and equality champion Billie Jean King, and WNBA champion Candace Parker, and head coach of DePaul's women's basketball team, Doug Bruno. Each honoree fosters institutions to uplift athleticism in women, shows younger generations all that is possible, and never, ever shy away from advocating for what is right. And I cannot think of three individuals more deserving of tonight's awards. So with that, let's begin our ceremony. Introducing tonight's award recipients are individuals who know them well, who are close to them, who have seen them firsthand the positive ripple effects of the work that they have done to open up doors of opportunity for women and girls. So it's my honor to introduce to you these individuals. First, To honor Billie Jean King with the Title IX Legend Award, I'd like to welcome up Kamal Murray. Some of you know that he is a tennis player and a coach, best known for coaching Sloane Stephens to a U.S. Open title in 2017. He is also the founder and CEO of Excess Tennis, an organization that provides underserved youth with an enriching, safe environment and pathway to college through community-based tennis and academic enrichment programming. Not only is he a homegrown champion for youth and equality, but a mentee of Billie Jean King. So there's so much more that I could say about Kamal, and he is charting his own course here in our great city, and we are fully support of the work that he is doing to open up opportunities and bring back professional tennis to our city, and rightfully so. But there's also a lot more that I can say about Billie Jean King, books worth of things that I could say about her. But let me just say that she is a legend, a champion, a trailblazer, and a tireless advocate for gender equality. But rather than go on, let me welcome up Kamal to the stage.
So I was driving over here with my wife, and I was like, what should I say? You know, Billie has her video and her canned speeches that I could probably recite, but I wanted to just talk about her connection to Chicago. So Billie Jean King still owns a home here and has been here, has owned a home here for 25 years. She comes here every month for her doctor's appointments at Northwestern Hospital. But my first interaction with Billie Jean King, I was coaching a young girl named Taylor Townsend, who at the age of 16 was #1 in the world, the first American junior to be #1 in the world since Zena Garrison in 1980. She was from Inglewood, which we all know is a food desert, and she was being fat shamed right around this time, around the US Open time. So Billie Jean King called me at midnight. She's famous for her midnight calls. So she called me at midnight every day, and my wife would roll over, who's calling you at midnight? I'm like, it's just Billie. No competition. She don't want nothing I got. It's just Billie. She's probably the only woman that can call my phone at midnight. So I pick up the phone, and every time, still in her true feminist format, how's Jen? I said, well, Jen's great. She was asleep until you called me. So I met her. She wanted to talk to Taylor, so I sit down at the table with Taylor, and Billie was like, oh, so I was going to introduce him, and I was going to walk away. She said, you sit down here. I want to know what you know. What are your qualifications for coaching this young girl? And I was like, well, I raised her, know her mother. I'm one of the reasons why she's at this point. And then she starts punching her fist. We need to do this and this and this. I'm like, you sure you're not from the south side of Chicago? And then we began talking about what I was already working on, which was the first indoor and outdoor tennis center in the world in a poor neighborhood. And then she became an advocate for that. And she says, oh, well, I know people in Chicago. I'm going to come and do a fundraiser for you. So we had a fundraiser scheduled at the Palmolive building. This was 8 years ago. And one of our leaders didn't show up. They got busy. And she doesn't stand for that. So we had all the money in Chicago in the room, but we didn't have one of our leaders that was supposed to be there. So the next day we had lunch. She says, oh, we're gonna go to City Hall because when I show up, that office better be there. So we call down to the 5th floor. We do what I call an ambush. So we walk in there, and I'm in my sweatpants, and she's in her famous blue shirt, big baggy sweatpants and black shoes. And she's like, I was there yesterday and you weren't there. And when I come here, you better be there. And so he's like, sorry, you know, and she says, well, you don't understand how much of a treasure this is. And so when you're trying to be the first black person in the world to build an indoor and outdoor tennis facility in a poor neighborhood, you need the protection. And so when I think about one word to describe what Billie means to me is a protector. When I was coaching Sloane Stephens, we would go to Wimbledon, and at first I started out being Sloane's brother, because I was the only black coach in all of pro tennis, male or female. And I was, what I used to say was young. So I was Sloane's brother. Then I graduated from being the brother to the boyfriend. Then I graduated from being the boyfriend to the hitting partner. And then Billie, in all her Wimbledon glory, you all need to refer to him as the coach. He's the only black man out here. He is not her boyfriend or brother or anything remotely like that. You all need to call him the coach. And because of her, I walk on the Wimbledon grounds knowing that I have the protection of Billie Jean King. And the last thing I'll say is that, you know, when we were raising money trying to build this center, I was like, Billy, you know, you're all about the girls and you're all about the women, right? Why are you fighting so hard to help me? There would be conversations at tables where in Chicago, we always hit construction delays in the wintertime. We always hit cost overruns. And it takes a brave person to be at that table and always speak up for what's right and to correct information that's wrong. And so that is why I think we are honoring her today, because she is always an advocate, not just of women's rights, but equal rights for all and equal narratives and fair narratives. And so for her, for that, I am always grateful. The one thing I will say is that when it's time for Billy to babysit, she shows her age. I can remember the first time she babysat my son. He was like 3 years old and he was having a temper tantrum, and she came to him with a plate of grapes. And I took a picture. I said, "You ain't that old. Grapes are not going to stop this temper tantrum. There's a box of Chips Ahoy that you might want to go and put on a plate, because those grapes are not going to do it." So I think that all of us in Chicago should be grateful to Billie Jean King, because without her, there would be no excess tennis. There would be no pro tennis on the south side of Chicago. There really would be no me. There was no way that I could have built a $16 million facility, initially with lukewarm support and no money, without her consistent support, her consistent fundraising and advocacy for what we do in this city. So if you see her on the street, thank her for what we have on the south side. Thank you.
For joining us in this, I think, important conversation. I know here in Chicago, people will be thrilled. Let me just kind of take you back, because you obviously were playing competitive sports pre-Title IX and post-Title IX. Is there a moment where, once Title IX was passed in 1972, that the light bulb went on for you?
Well, I knew about Title IX before it was passed. And cared very much for it to be passed, and was involved a little bit. I was still playing, I'm playing a lot of tennis by then and traveling all over the world, so I couldn't do as much as I'd like, but all of us were praying that Title IX would be passed, because it was really an educational amendment for the classrooms, because there were classroom quotas. Everybody thinks it's about women's sports, but it's really originally because it was about education. Yeah. It's 37 words. And what it did is it got rid of classroom quotas, basically. If you wanted to be a doctor at Harvard, for instance, they only allowed 5% of the classroom to be women. Same with all the universities and the colleges. And so it was very important to have this passed, because for the first time, any federal funds that schools receive, whether it was high schools, colleges, or universities, public or private, for the first time, had to start spending money on women. The reason we have women's sports, because of Title IX, the 37 words. In the 37 words, there's the word activity. And that's the reason we have women's sports, because we're an activity. And let's face it, we need more women athletic directors, we need more women coaches. The more successful a sport becomes, more and more males want to sign up to coach. If you notice, we have more men coaches in women's basketball, for instance, more than ever, is because it's watched, it's successful, and they follow the money better than girls.
Well, speaking of following the money, over the course of your career, you haven't just been an athlete, you've been really trying to stand up institutions to support women's sports. And I'm told that the year after Title IX started, you and others formed the Women's Tennis Association. Tell us about the impetus for that and why you thought that that was necessary at that time.
The most important thing that happened in women's tennis was in 1970. We're called the Original Nine. We're 9 players who are willing to give up our careers for the future generations. Here's the 3 things we're willing to do. To give up everything. Number 1, that any girl born in this world, if she's good enough, would have a place to play. Number 2, that we would be appreciated for our accomplishments, not only our looks. And number 3 was to be able to make a living. because we had come from amateur tennis when we made $14 a day. So we knew we'd probably get suspended, we'd probably get in trouble, but we knew that we had to do this for the future generations no matter what. And so I said to our players, I said, we have to have an association or a union. We're not allowed to have a union because we're independent contractors. But I said, we have to have an association, and we have to get all of us, all the top players from both tours, we have to be together. And that happened 4 days before Wimbledon in 1973, which was a year after Title IX was passed. And of course, I played Bobby Riggs in 1973, and I wanted to beat him. One of the many reasons, was because I wanted Title IX to stay strong, because a lot of people were already trying to tear it down. And so I really wanted this to stay strong for both men and women to get equal opportunities for the first time. Every time you see a girl or woman get paid, it doesn't matter what level of tournament, but she gets her little check.
Yeah.
We are so relevant to them getting their money today. And that was the birth of women's professional tennis the way you know it in 1970.
We'll make sure that that important moment in history doesn't get lost. You brought up Bobby Riggs, which I was going to get to. I remember I made myself a little homemade button supporting you in that match. So with the benefit of obviously a lot of hindsight, I wonder if you still feel the importance of that match.
It was so important that I win that match because 90 million people watched it throughout the world. Yeah. And it was very important for social change, to change the hearts and minds of people. I wanted the hearts and minds to be changed to match Title IX. That's really what I wanted. And this is our 50th anniversary this year. It's huge. I was at the Capitol the other day when they unveiled a portrait of Congresswoman Patsy Mink, who's considered the mother of Title IX. Senator Birch Bayh from Indiana, who really helped with the Senate, who's a real hero of mine. He said, Billy, you know, we weren't sure if we're going to leave that word activity in or out. We kept debating, and we decided to keep it in. And he says, I'm so happy we kept it in, because he said, I had no idea what it would do for women's sports. We had not a clue, but look what's happened.
It's interesting that you share this. The word activity was debated as to whether or not it was going to be in there, but it opened up a world of possibilities for young girls and women to really kind of come into their own and participate and frankly demonstrate that women are fantastic athletes. What do you see as coming down the road, and particularly given the current climate, what we've seen from the Supreme Court, what do you see as the biggest challenges that are facing us in the next 50 years of Title IX?
One thing about Title IX, we know that it helped suburban white girls the most. So we really have to help those who I think have been left behind. Women of color is very major that we make sure that are taken care of. Transgender athletes, there's challenges there. Girls with disabilities, and also the LGBTQ plus community. So we have all these things, and also not drop back. You know, I always pretend that everything's in a tenuous position all the time, and that you have to fight every day and win every day. Coretta Scott King talks about that every generation has to fight and win it. Freedom is never really happens, but you have to keep fighting for it forever. And so, you know, the younger generations, like the Candace Parkers of the world and the babies coming up after her, and even the older generations like myself, we still can help support these causes to help the future generations, because that's really our job, I think. It's our legacy that we have to do. But those are the things that we have to fight. And then Roe versus Wade, I don't think people should tell women about what they can and cannot do with their own bodies. If people really care, then you vote in November. You vote for people who believe what you believe, because we must have control over our own bodies. Right. But this should be an impetus to all of us to absolutely make sure we vote.
Right. So I always like to end on an upbeat note. So tell us what gives you hope. What gives you hope for Title IX, but what gives you hope in particular for the empowerment of women? Because as you said, this is really about empowering women and opening up opportunities that didn't exist before, particularly in the classroom. And I'm a firm believer that education is absolutely the great equalizer. So Title IX has opened up a world of possibilities for women, not to be the exceptions, but to be in lots of different spaces that historically have been only available to men. So what gives you hope looking out into the future?
I think when I talk to young people of all genders, they truly do care about their world. And I am with you about education. They must get educated to help, like you said, to equalize what's going on. And we need to help our under-resourced families, I think. Anytime a child doesn't get their education, they're in under-resourced situations, is not good. We have to make sure they get the basics, that they eat right, they get food, water, education, all the things that they need, and they need to get support, emotional support. I just think it's big to be kind and good, whoever's standing in front of me, no matter their background or their color or their religion or belief system. We can still be kind and good to each other, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head. If our young people see whoever it is, parent, guardian, caring adult, that is modeling that kind of behavior and gives them support so they can see the possibilities for their lives, it makes all the difference in the world. So listen, thank you so much. You've been generous with your time. We're so honored to bestow this Chicago Title IX Legend Award, and that you've accepted it and that you've spent time with us today. You are and continue to be a great inspiration for many. You're definitely a hero to me, and I'm honored that you're spending time with us. Thanks so much, and God bless you. Give our regards to Alana, and come back to Chicago.
Say hi to Amy.
Definitely will. Definitely
so anyway, thank you for the Chicago Title IX Legend Award. It means so much to me.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Well, I think you got a treat with that video, and while Billy can't be here with us in person, we'll make sure that she gets the award, and we'll be sure to send her your regards. So next, I'd like to introduce you to someone who is very, very special to our Title IX Leader Award recipient, Candace Parker, and that is her mother, Sarah. Sarah is a force to be reckoned with if anybody has met her. Not easy having your mom as your coach, but I think Candace turned out okay from those humble beginnings, and her mom not only being a role model for her, but pushing her to excel and making sure that she had the same opportunities that her older brothers had. We're lucky to have Sarah with us this evening. She can obviously speak from the heart about how incredible her daughter Candace is, and how fortunate we all are to have Candace back home playing in Chicago. So Candace is not only a basketball champion who led the Chicago Sky to a WNBA championship, but she's a champion for equality in sports. In fact, Candace produced a documentary about Title IX that is being screened on Friday by the Cubs through our Title IX Week programming. Candace is a true leader for women everywhere, and especially for the girls and young women in Chicago. Being at a Sky game and watching her work the crowd afterwards, before the play starts and afterwards, and you see the unbelievable looks of adoration on the faces of the girls and boys who come, you know she's got something special that we are very proud of. So without further ado, Sarah, come and do the introduction. Thank you.
I'd like to say good evening. Thank you for the kind words. I'm Sarah Parker, Candace's mom, And many of you know Candace as a basketball player, as a phenomenal athlete. But in the recent years, you've learned she's so much more than that. You know, she's an entrepreneur, she's a TV analyst, she's a champion for women, and she's a champion for all. She loves the game of basketball. She chose to come back home and has embraced the city, and the city has embraced her. And as she's grown, she's become a wife and a mother, and as she continues to expand, she has businesses that she enjoys, and she cares about others. You know, she's a Chicago girl. She's welcoming, she's fun, she's educated, she enjoys interacting with all the young people at the game and always have. If you'd seen her as a young girl, she always had somebody's little sister or little brother on her lap. In fact, we just had a recollection here of a gentleman that had his son at the game, and this, you know, the son wasn't having it. And Candace took him to the candy store, you know. Now, I'd get in trouble for doing that with Layla, but I'm really proud of her and proud that she stands up for those that can't stand for themselves, and that she's a very, very special daughter. So without further ado, I'll say to you that, you know, she's a little sassy, okay, sometimes more than a little sassy, and she's Candace Parker.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mom, for those kind words. I really have to pinch myself sometime because I'm back where I grew up, being introduced by the mayor and the first lady. Billie Jean King just said my name. Did you hear that? You guys heard that? Coach Bruno is sitting here where it all started. And first, I want to say congratulations to the other legends that are recipients of this award, because I started off going to Doug Bruno's basketball camps. Basketball, I love it, I love it, I love it. And every year I've loved it much more. And it was because of those roots of being able to play pickup against girls. Because girls didn't play a lot of pickup, right? But Coach Bruno opened up his doors and allowed us to come in and to play pickup and to learn those skills and to meet other girls that had the same passions that we had. You know, for Billie Jean King, I remember doing a Title IX report in 8th grade on Billie Jean King. Opened up my history book and it was talking about Title IX. And to be able to get to know her, I called her to be interviewed for my documentary. She said, yes, of course, without hesitation. What do you need? Where should I be? And she opened up so many doors for our generation, for my generation. And not just in sports. You talk about women in leadership positions. It's a result of having the confidence because of sports. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Coach Summit. And I say Coach Summit because she was a champion for women, for equality, for opening up the doors for us to believe that we belong to walk into these rooms. And because of her, I asked her, I said, Coach, hey, how do you live your life? What's your purpose? She said, I live my life for passion and for people. And I've been fortunate enough to follow that. And because of that, because of the passion of basketball, because of the people, my upbringing, my parents never said that I didn't deserve to walk in these rooms or that, you know, I couldn't do something because I was a girl. Because of that, you know, look what's possible. And I think that just because Title IX for an entire generation, entire generations before mine, limited. I mean, just to hear her say that they had a quota at Harvard at how many women could become doctors, the limitations that our world puts on women. And for 50 years to see that growth and to see little bit by bit those limitations be stripped away. But we're not done. And I know this is a celebration. I know this is a celebration. But I owe it to the future generation to challenge all of us here, challenge all those that are listening, to continue to open up the doors for young girls, to continue to really value diversity of thought, diversity of leadership, to continue to empower our young girls in their mindsets. That it's not okay in 4th grade that the boys get brand new uniforms and the girls don't. They get hand-me-downs. That's not okay. And I have bragging rights. My nephews are here right now, and you know, my oldest brother, he played 10 years in the league. I mean, he played with LeBron, he was cool, whatever. My nephew wears my jersey to school on Jersey Day, okay? So I think visibility is the most important thing, and we're seeing where visibility has taken youth sports, women's sports, the WNBA, but we've seen the trickling down effect of Title IX in leadership positions, in boardrooms, in organizations. And I think it's so important for our young boys and our dads and our guys out there to be allies, because this is something that is not just our fight. This is all of you all. And so we need those advocates, we need those allies to help push this forward. Thank you so much. This is such an honor to be home. And you know, I hope all of you all will join us on this exciting run. We're doing okay. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. So we know we have to keep this thing going. But there's something special in Chicago, and we're going to continue to build on it. So thank you so much. This is a huge honor. Thank you.
Candace just said it's sometimes awkward taking pictures. Well, it's awkward when you're 5'1", standing next to 5'9", and 6 something, right? That's awkward, but also incredibly special. So now, for the last award of the evening, I'm honored to introduce you to Jeannie Lenti-Pacetto, who is representing DePaul women's basketball coach Doug Bruno, and will be presenting him and introducing him. As DePaul's athletics directors for many years, Jeannie has worked closely with Doug and knows how much he means not only to the DePaul community, but to our entire city. Jeannie paved the way for both DePaul athletic successes and for women who aspire to be leaders in the field. You know, at the time that she served as athletic director, she was one of a small handful of women at Division I level who were athletic directors. So she is an incredible hero and success and role model in her own right. Similarly, Coach Bruno has led his team to success many times over, and as Candace said, we do need allies. We can't win this fight on our own. We need those fathers who care about their daughters. We need those coaches who understand that women learn in a different way and that they should be fully supportive of making sure that women grow. And in any way that you measure somebody who is an ally of women in sports, Doug Bruno fits the bill. He's been had a powerful impact on the game of basketball and in the lives of his players. And we have a couple former players who are here tonight and have been on his team as coaches, and that, again, I think is a testament to his impact on the game. Through multiple victories, he's put DePaul basketball, women's basketball, on the map. And our entire city is lucky to feel his presence. With that, I'm going to invite Jeannie to come up and say a few words about our beloved Doug Bruno.
A huge thanks to Mayor Lightfoot and First Lady Eshelman for creating today's celebration and for their legacy of inclusivity among the many hallmarks of their time as stewards of City Hall and our wonderful city of Chicago. It's a benchmark to be celebrated as you ready for your second term and to be preserved for future generations of Chicago leaders to come. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm incredibly proud, honored, and humbled to be introducing my longtime colleague of over 40 years and my former college basketball coach at DePaul University. It has been a magical journey, as is evidenced by his incredible success locally, nationally, and internationally. His storied career ranks among the most accomplished in men's and women's college basketball history, and he's still at it. As of membership in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, the Chicagoland Sports Hall of Fame, the DePaul Athletics Hall of Fame, the Italian American Sports Hall of Fame, and the Illinois Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame don't tell the entire story. How about winning a gold as an assistant coach twice for our USA national team in London in 2012 and Rio in 2016? How about closing in on 800 wins as a head coach, eclipsing the legendary Ray Meyer as DePaul's all-time winningest basketball coach, men or women? I do have to say, though, and Doug remembers this, he did have a couple scuffles with the officials where they disagreed when I was playing for him as a student athlete, and I had to finish coaching a couple of those games because the officials had showed him the door. Title IX is and has been the revolutionary change that created opportunities for women to advance in our American society. For my part, I'm incredibly grateful to all the women and men who championed the cause so that myself and all future generations would have the benefit of becoming leaders in education, business, law, politics, healthcare, technology, communications, and every facet of American life. Title IX was then and is now far more than giving girls and women opportunities to play sports. It's about leadership. Having multiple voices in the conversation, having multiple seats at the table, and being difference makers for the betterment of humanity. Many have championed the cause. In Chicago, nationally and internationally, Doug Bruno is one of the most outspoken. He is a champion of women, a champion of Title IX, more often than not, the voice of the voiceless, fighting, negotiating, maneuvering for fairness, equity, and equality at every turn. For the voices in the conversations, for the seats in the room, and for the ever-growing contributions of the difference makers. He is more often than not the most outspoken in difficult times, ever challenging the status quo of the media or the systemic injustices that women in sport have endured for longer than 50 years, with measurable success to be duly noted. It's been awe-inspiring to witness his incredible commitment to girls and women's basketball. Whether you were among the thousands of little girls that Candace just talked about who attended Doug Bruno basketball camp, a student athlete on one of his DePaul teams, a pro in the WBL or WNBA, or an Olympian, you received his undivided attention toward your growth as a human being and as an athlete. His understanding and respect for his position as a teacher and coach to mentor, educate, and support women and girls were sacred at his very core as a servant leader and humanitarian committed to aiding women in honing their leadership skills. For my part, and I dare say as I speak for generations of Doug's former players, especially Doug's first team that I played on as a Title IX was just entering DePaul's portals, Title IX was then and is now about giving women the opportunity to lead. It's a celebration of humanity, of fairness, equity, and equality in how we treat each other and live our lives. Doug championed that message on every level imaginable. So it's only fitting that in this 50th anniversary of Title IX, in his lifelong hometown of Chicago, that we celebrate him. All the coaches who served with him, along with his wonderful wife, Patty, his 6 sons, and his entire family, who have walked and supported him every step of the journey. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce my coach, my colleague, and dear friend, Doug Bruno.
This is the greatest sports town in America, and Mayor Lightfoot today brought NASCAR to Chicago. Congratulations. It's one of the many things that Mayor Lightfoot has done for this great first term and will continue to do when she wins election in her second term. And This is really about a law, and I'm here tonight as a spokesperson. I really don't deserve this honor. I'm a spokesperson for all the women who have fought their entire lives for equality for women in sports. And those women, there are just so many. I have my mother, Drotha, was a Marine in World War II, and she was proud of that. But she went to her deathbed angry because her 6 brothers got to go to combat and she did not get to go to combat. We're talking about 5% medical doctors. My Aunt Dorothy retired from Harvard as a research chemist finding a cure for heart disease. She was a research chemist because she was not allowed to go to Harvard's medical school. And I was blessed to have these women lead when I was a young person. So I guess I grew up. And then a 7th grade nun named Sister Rayfield Mary. These 3 women have just been such great inspirations in my life. You know, you live on the south side of Chicago, and you go to school on the south side of Chicago, 79th and Western, in a day when civil rights in America, the civil rights movement in America, Quigley South, 79th and Western is around the corner from Marquette Park. The years were the early 60s to the mid 60s. And we were blessed to go to school at at Quigley with black students that were your friends and white students. We went to school together. And yet we grew up watching our families, our white families, move from parish to parish when one black family, we lived a raisin in the sun. We didn't have to watch a raisin in the sun. So you grow up in the city of Chicago, you could still hitchhike down 79th and Western all the way to Rainbow Beach and through black communities after black communities, and you weren't afraid. So when you grow up in this great city in those great times, never in my life would I have imagined that you're gonna be standing here as a spokesperson for the civil right of gender equity in this country. I didn't set out that way, it didn't start that way. But at the same time, it just has turned out that way. You're successful as a coach for 3 reasons, and I must make sure that everybody understands that. And I'm successful because I have great bosses. And Dwayne Peavy, our athletic director, thank you for being here with Taylor Stapleton tonight. And Jeannie, thank you for your great leadership through the years. Been blessed to have great bosses. My wife, Patty, is the greatest boss an idiot like me could ever have. You're blessed to have great assistant coaches, and my assistants that are here tonight, Jill Pizzotti, Candace Blankson, and Lisa Rickbosch, are here, Sam Karanji, Arkesha Smith, and Amar Coleman. I think I've got you, Nancy Graham, my assistant coaches. And then lastly, and most importantly, you're successful because you have great players. And while not so many of my players are here this evening, Candace, you represent all the players that I've been blessed to coach. I was just really blessed to coach great talent at DePaul University. And Candace, you know, I remember you walking into that camp, and you were just so special walking into that camp. And you know, it's just, you represent so many great players. So I just want to congratulate you. We all grew up watching Billie Jean King, and believe it or not, Billie Jean, believe me, I was pulling for you, not Bobby Riggs, when you buried that idiot back in whatever it was, 72 or 73. And you speak about advocates for men that are advocates, and I just really have to thank Gene Sullivan, who was an athletic director at DePaul when Title IX was happening at DePaul University. Gene Sullivan was the athletic director who embraced it. I think his daughter Terry is now a softball coach at the University of Illinois, played softball at Loyola University, and she's 5 years old when her dad is looking at this law as an athletic director saying, this is real. You know, we got it, we have to do this. And instead of fighting having to do it, he just went right to Father Ed Riley and said, we have to do this, we will do this, we need the money, Father. And these are some men back in the day, along with Dr. Patricia Ewers at DePaul University, that helped lead this lead this fight for women in sport. So again, I just have to thank all these people. I'm so lucky to have had them as my leaders, my bosses, my former players. I've just been blessed to have so many great people around me through the years. You know, every single day I get to coach and I still get to coach. I coach today. I get to sit there with those athletes and say to them, I just said it to them the other day, I haven't learned one thing about the game of basketball. Everything I learned about the game of basketball, I learned from you, young women. And then to watch these women have the opportunity and to realize when you're thrown into coaching, and Jean Sullivan said, go coach the women. The coach wasn't there. She was on a vacation. And Jeannie's team was practicing by herself. The captain was Jeannie. And he said, go coach the women here at DePaul. I will be happy to. Billie Jean, I did coach for, I'm looking at Billie Jean up there. I did coach for nothing for 2 years, Billie Jean. So I did not get in this because it's paying a lot of money. It's paying better money now. But at the same time, better money, all right? It's still not paying equal money, all right? Now, Dwayne, you know I'll come in and ask. I'm not going to try to negotiate from the pulpit. But back to these young women, when you're asked to do this, you never really realize that there's not just a civil rights movement in this country where people are having to fight every single day to get equal treatment. There's also a gender rights issue in this country where more than half the population have to fight every single day to have equal opportunity. And again, I didn't ask to step into this fight, but once you step into this fight and you understand that, in fact, it is a fight and a battle that we're proud to celebrate 50 years, but the battle has just begun. There's still so much more to get done. You know, everybody's referencing the media coverage. For women, for people to come watch women, they need to have exposure, and still 2 to 8% of all media coverage in mainstream sports is of women. So we still have a fight on our hands. I'm going to just close by thanking all the great women I've been blessed to coach, all the great women I've been great to work around and with and under. And, you know, I just, again, thank all the great women that have taught me that, you know, this fight is not over, and we still have, in the words of Robert Frost, many miles to go before we sleep, miles to go before we sleep. So thank you. I'm humbled. I'm honored. Mayor Lightfoot, thank you and Amy, thank you for having this and providing this opportunity to represent women in sports. Thank you.
So can we give a final round of applause to our award recipients tonight? This was an incredible labor of love for Amy and I, and mostly Amy and the team. So I've got to thank her once again for really making this event happen, something special, and for her thoughts and inspiration. So thank you so much, Amy. And I think both Candace and Coach Bruno said it. This is a night for celebration, and we should do that. But we should always keep our eye on the path ahead. There's many more miles that we've got to travel to make sure that we continue kicking down the doors, breaking those glass ceilings, and creating real opportunity for young girls and women in the sports. And maybe, given the crazy world and the climate that we're in, sports will be our path forward. It will be the great equalizer. Because it's not about red states, blue states. It's not about conservative or liberal. It's what do you do on the field? How do you commit yourself on that court? What are you doing in that rink? And each of us, I think, marvels at the spectacle but also the beauty of athletes performing at their highest and best abilities. We cheer them on, we cry for them when they fail, but we root for them to get back up and get back in the game. And that's what this is about. So I just want to thank you one and all. Thank you to our award recipients, and thank you all for being here. Join us for the reception. Thank you.